This week we released a video called How to Get Your China Factory to Deliver on Time. And what I wanted to do is continue with a workshop series where I can break down concepts more. So I know that for our audience, there may be some beginners to advanced people, all right? But I just want everyone to know that the concepts are the same. It doesn't matter if you're now starting off or if you've been doing this for almost 15 years like myself. Okay, so let's take a look, right? So what we have here is we're following the dial or band system, right? And the dial or band just means that the owner of the factory is the person that we ultimately want to build a relationship with, right? So these 7 steps that you see here, this has been my strategy over the last 13 years going to China, okay? So I put it into a framework and there are 7 steps to it. If you follow these 7 steps, pretty much you're going to end up with a really great factory that you can build a relationship for your business over the long term. And that is the key objective here, is to build a long-term relationship with that factory, and then they become an asset, and year over year, they just keep producing, and you get the payback and returns that I can't even begin to tell you. All right? Okay, so today we're looking at number 3, the delivery time. Okay. So as we look at the delivery time, right, what's really important is that you have a factory that has systems that can produce with systems. And what happens most of the time is there are 3 top questions that when people do business in China, whether it's Alibaba, I've used Alibaba, I've gone to the Canton Fair. Most of my suppliers come from the Canton Fair, right? And occasionally I do use Alibaba. But the top 3 questions are always, what is your price? What is your MOQ? And what is your delivery time? Okay? And usually from my experience, a lot of people base their buying decisions on those 3 things. Now, what I'm trying to teach people to do, entrepreneurs, especially CEOs and founders, right, is that you got to go just a couple layers deeper to check out if the factory or trading company or sourcing agent, right, and I explain these in different videos, okay, whoever you decided to deal with, you got to make sure that they have a capable production system. And a lot of times, a lot of the comments that I read is that I didn't go with a trading company. I prefer a factory instead, factory direct, because the price was higher, the quality was higher, right? Different things. But from my experience, I've dealt with all of them, trading companies, sourcing agents, factories direct, and they all each have their own benefits, okay? The key to it is to find the right one. And that's why I've developed these 7 steps, okay? Now, with on-time delivery, here's a story that happened to me. For people that don't know me, I started going to China in 2013 when I got an opportunity to start doing sourcing and procurement for the biggest music festival in the Caribbean, right? That is the biggest street carnival in the world, they say, which is in Trinidad and Tobago, okay? And I dealt with so many factories and learned as I went along. And in the early days, right, I asked the factory, okay, what is your delivery time? And they would give me a standard response, something like 40 days or 30 days or 50 days. And I would just believe it without really doing my due diligence. And then guess what happened? When 40 days came, we have problems, we were late. So basically, I took them at their word. And then I got upset. I was like, what? But you told me 40 days, right? How could you break that agreement if we agreed to 40 days or 50 days or whatever it is? And basically, they were late and there was nothing I could do about it because we had to ship goods in a container. And that one product that was delayed the whole container. I mean, our goods were supposed to arrive before Christmas, and guess what happened? They arrived after Christmas. And Dwayne, he was just sweating. I was just sweating like, whoa, am I gonna affect my customer, right? My end client. And that's when I realized, hold on, you're not working by a system. You're just believing the production date, okay? But what you really need to do is have a system behind it. And a system just means a series of guided steps. And trust me, it's not that complicated, but yes, it does take a bit of practice, okay? It does take a bit of repeatability to get there and to understand everything that I'm teaching you. But if you can follow me along, I've broken it up so that each lesson, each video that we record and teach, right? Hopefully you get to understand it more. So, okay. So what I wanted to do today is that as we talk about delivery time, there is a system to follow, okay? And what I decided to do is let's do an example. So if you watch the YouTube video, right, about how to get your China factory to deliver on time, in part of the video, we went to my cap factory. Now these guys that make this cap, right, this is the same cap that I showed in the video, okay? And I was talking with Bob. Bob is the Dalao Ban. Dalao Ban just means the owner of the factory in Chinese. Okay, he's the big boss, right? So I only like to talk with the big bosses, right? Yes, the sales agent too, but the big boss, because that's when you can really build relationships, okay? So in the video, I was saying that you got to qualify every single detail. You got to qualify the material, you got to qualify the colors, right? If they're different Pantone colors, right? You got to qualify the logos. And this one here, this is a woven embroidered patch logo, okay? You got to confirm so many details. And the reason for that is because the factory has to order all the materials ahead. The longest part of the delivery process is getting the raw materials into the factory because the factory has to order it from their supplier, okay? So what I'm trying to say is that if you don't have your own system to qualify a factory, then what's gonna happen is something's gonna be delayed and it's gonna throw off the whole system. Okay, so in my case, what I realized is that everything was like a series of dominoes. All right, so in the video, I say everything has to mesh together because it is true, right? You've got, right, this could be materials, and then this could be logos, and this could be zippers, right? This could be something, right? So let's just say, hey, this is materials, okay? And sometimes those materials are custom colored, right? So let's just put custom color, right? Custom color. Okay, then there are logos, right? Then there's sizes, okay? There are many different little gears that have to mesh together. And if one of these are off, it affects the whole production line. And then it's very hard to catch up because they have to assemble it together, right? So I call this the domino effect, where one starts, and if one's delayed, it falls, and then guess what happens? This last one goes kaput, right? So let's put here a delay, right? I hope we can see that. So we're going from one gets late, this topples over, then this topples over, then this topples over, and then eventually you have a delayed system. Okay, so that's basically what I was trying to say in the video. Now, let's take a look at our example to be more specific, and the system, how I developed it. Okay. Okay, so what I did in a previous video, I actually created an AI prompt that you guys can use to do a bill of materials, okay? So we're gonna use this hat as an example. And what I did here was I created a BOM. So all you have to do is take a photo of your product with your mobile phone and upload the photos to the AI prompt in ChatGPT that I gave you, and it's gonna produce this BOM that you see here, okay? So the BOM gives you everything. Even if you don't know the materials, AI will help you as a start, okay? So you see that this has all the different views, right? Isometric view, bottom view, top view, front view, and it gives you all the itemized balloons, right? So each balloon will tell you what the name of the part is or the component and the material, and then color codes, right? If you see something that's off, you can always change it. Okay, that's the beauty of it. The reason that we do this BOM is so that we can record all the details from the sizes here to the Pantone colors to the logos. You got to be really specific, and you got to give the factory this bill of materials or BOM sheet. Okay, hope that makes sense. Now, when you give it to them and it has all the specifications, then they know exactly what you want. You know exactly what you want. They know exactly what you want. And then the ordering process could start. But if there are any loose ends where they say, oh, Dwayne, you need to confirm the size of the logo. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that tomorrow. That one day that you're late could equal 5 days late of final delivery because of the domino effect. Okay? That is why I said in the video, you got to confirm all the details from the very beginning, okay, to work out the delivery time. Okay, so that's tip number 1. All right. Now, the other thing is that what keeps everything on track is a tracker. So this is black and white, right? But let's go over to the computer that I have here, and then I can actually show you what it looks like. Okay. So, maybe I'll do this instead. Okay, I'm gonna show you it on the computer in a second. Okay, but what we've got here is a production tracker. All right, so you can see in this production tracker, right, you've got in this column I listed out for you guys all the different stages of production, from the sampling to final production, including payments to deposit, including quality control, including China customs. I sat down and said, okay, if I had to order product all over again, what are each individual step from conception to implementation? And I put it in a spreadsheet, which is exactly what I do as well. Okay. And then in this spreadsheet, you can actually take each component and put it into the next week, right? So for example, if they tell you that your project time is 8 weeks, right? Here, you've got all the main things. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. This will be easier, right? In this here, this is just a zoom in. You've got all the main events, right? So the first thing you want to do is like a factory verification. Okay, that's important. So what I would do is I would take this and say, okay, week 1, I'm going to do this. Okay. So I put all of these things in here. Okay, once that's complete, then I can start my sample making, right? So I will do this sample making here, right? Okay, let's continue here. And then maybe this goes into week 2. Follow me? And we just keep going on and on. Now, some events are gonna overlap in different weeks, and that's fine. That's why you have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. You're just chunking, all right? You're just breaking up all the things you have to do into weeks, and it keeps everything on track. I hope that makes sense, right? So it's like a master project tracker, okay? Now, if you want, right, we can actually then have a weekly guide. So here's my weekly guide. And what I've done here is that you can actually take some of these elements, if you want, and just put them into the week. So this is week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you got a 10-week project, you can change the dates in the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet will be available for you to download, because I hope it helps you. Okay. And then you put every component here, or the critical ones, right? So the weekly tracker would, right? You can break your week into certain details, right? So you know that for this week, January 4th, for example, 2026, my main 5 or 6 things to do is going to be this, right? My top priority is going to be this for the next week and so on, right? So now you can take some of these things, for example, right? And then transfer it over here, okay? So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so from a weekly to a daily, okay? This really helped me to keep everything on track, because what's going to happen is that, especially when you have multiple SKUs, right, different products, your mind's going to go crazy, right? There's so many elements to it. But when you're on a tight schedule and you got to get products to market, it's really important to keep everything on track. So the product tracker is the system that I use, right? And it all starts with awareness, okay? Hope this makes sense. Now, let's go off to the computer here because I just wanted to show you it in color, okay? So if you look here, you're going to see that this is what I was talking about. So we can blow this up a little bit, right? So what I've listed here are all production events, okay, from factory verification and the different steps. Sample making, right? The BO, for example, is the BOM issued with logos, colors, sizes. BOM finalized with logos, colors, sizes. If it's yes, right, you can just highlight it. So highlighted yellow, okay? If these are finished, right? So you can do whatever makes sense for you guys, and then you know it's off your list. I usually color code it, and sometimes I will strike it off, okay? So I like visuals and I like colors, so I can tell right away, okay? So if we go down here, we're gonna go from factory verification, sample making, deposit paid, right? Raw materials ordering schedule. So here with raw materials, you wanna actually ask the factory, when is the raw material coming in, right? You wanna keep on track. So when is the first raw material coming in? So if it's a cap, right? If I'm looking at the cap here, this is a mesh, right? It's a black plastic mesh. Okay, when is the mesh coming in? And maybe they have it in stock. Great, so you can put that it's in stock and mark it in yellow because that's off your list. In this case, right, this is sublimation. So we gave them a design and they printed it. That means it requires the material and it requires to be printed by the sublimation factory. So we need to put on our tracker, okay, when is the sublimation material going to start or when is it going to finish? Okay, so with all of that, we can keep track. If they say, for example, it's going to take 3 weeks, then that means now, what week are we in? Maybe we're in week 2, week 3, week 4. Well, 3 weeks will be either week 4, right? 3 or 4. So you can put that in the tracker here, right? You can put that in week 4, for example. Okay, so this is week 3. Okay, let's go back here. This is week 3. We can put, for example, raw material, sublimation panels to arrive. Okay, and that's how we keep track of everything. Okay, now the other thing too is that when we look at the cap, we've got a logo. This is an embroidered patch. So that means that now they have to use another supplier, which is the embroidery factory. How long is that going to take? So you need to ask them, right? So maybe we put here on our tracker for raw materials, we put embroidery logo, okay? How long is that going to take? And we could put it in our weekly calendar. And if there's more specific details, we could then put it in our daily calendar, okay? So that's how I keep things on track for delivery. Now, if we keep going along the spreadsheet, you're going to see that it has everything from the factory production, which production line, how many workers, right? All of this seems like a lot of detail, but if your container is late or it has defects, then you're gonna wish you went through all these details. So this is a small price to pay in the beginning to have on-time delivery with great quality products, okay? And then we keep on going. Final factory final inspection, packing, pre-production samples sent to an AQL company, freight forwarder, right? So there's the freight forwarder components there, and then the container arrived at the port and China customs, okay? So we can break this down from a project into weeks, and that's how you keep it on track, okay? One more thing is let's take a look at, I think it's this one. Okay, here we go. Right? So this is the BOM. So you can see it here in color. Okay. And it shows everything, right? This is I just took the 4 photos, front, back, side, top, bottom, okay? And I used my ChatGPT prompt and it did everything for me, right? Once I'm happy with all the verifications, okay? And then if we zoom in a little bit, you're gonna see here, you've got all the different materials, okay? So at the bottom here, right? Each balloon, that's the one with the circle, right? So for example, number 1 is the front printed crown panel, okay? Right, so number 1 is the front panel. Number 2 is the embroidery logo, right? Okay, and so on and so on, okay? So now when your factory sees this, and remember, you're gonna give this BOM to, if you're starting off, 7 to 11 factories, because you gotta get quotations to get a fair price. If it's your existing supplier that you're doing a repeat order, great. You already have a relationship. Now you just need to confirm all the details, okay? So everything is there, everything is explained. There's no misunderstandings, misinterpretations, and this is what helps to keep your delivery time on order, okay? If you don't like the color codes, right, you can always change it. Maybe they've done a sample for you and you didn't like black, you wanted blue. Okay, great. You can just change it to blue and then tell them these are the new changes, right? And then just to show everyone, let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, so at the bottom here, right, you've got a review history. So if you did make a change to some feature, you document it here so that everybody knows what's the new change. And then on top here, you see we've got the revision letter A, okay? Now, when you're happy with the sample or when you're happy with all the specifications and they are happy with it, you guys need to sign off. Everybody needs to sign off. And that means everyone's like, you shook hands and then you're comparing apples to apples. From this point, when everything's confirmed, start the sampling process. If you need to make a change during sampling, okay, just record the revision letter. Okay, so the BOM tool is amazing. It's powerful. And this is what you're gonna use up to production. So after you do the changes, okay, everything's sorted out. Materials, colors, sizes, quantities, final packaging. Do you need a special hang tag or special packaging on it? Okay, after all that's sorted out, and you could use the BOM for that, then you pay the deposit. Then you go into production, okay? Because you have all the detailed information. Okay, so just a quick teaching video or workshop video, I like to call it, about what the teaching video on YouTube was about today, all right? With a real life example of one of the products that I did when we are looking at the carnival, okay? So, yeah, and also if you want access to the cap factory, if you're doing caps, just send me a message, okay? They've done over 80 million caps. They're one of the biggest and best cap factories in China. And guess what? They're not even on Alibaba, okay? So you're gonna get great, side note, you're gonna get great factories at the Canton Fair, because this is where I met them, or you're gonna meet them somewhere on Alibaba, okay? So I've met great factories on both platforms. But what's kept me, let's say, successful, I guess, right? I've got a pretty good record of delivering on time, is because of the system that I follow. Not because I'm that special, but I've just cracked the code a little bit by observing patterns, okay? And also, you will know when you find a great factory. It's like frictionless, right? You guys are just like a team going back and forth, and it feels like no effort at all. If you find a factory that has friction, I think you know the answer, and maybe it's a good time to find a different one. All right, so thanks a lot, and hope this helped. And you can download the production milestone or project milestone tracker in the description.